the Singularity. Technology is growing at such an unbelievably rapid rate that we need to be more vigilant than ever before because we are approaching something no one has ever seen before, the Singularity. For the non-geeks in the audience, which is pretty much everybody but me, the Singularity is a technological boom so big and so fast that in an instant we have machines that are smarter than we are. The virtual world already meshes with the real world. In 20 years, it will be impossible to discern between the two. I said 15 years ago to Stu, my producer, you're not going to be able to believe your eyes anymore because they'll be able to do digital enhancements on photography that you won't know if that picture was really taken or not. About that same time, I had a conversation with my dad 15 years ago. He said, boy, I don't envy you. He said, I'm glad I'm at the end of my life, not at the beginning, because you guys are going to have to deal with things I can't even imagine. I asked him what he meant. He said, Glenn, have you noticed the stunning advancements that have been made just in your lifetime? He said, let's go back to the time of Jesus and look at the advancements that have been made. Wouldn't you say that they are incredible, right? Now, would you make the same claim if you go back to the time of Jesus and look at the process and the progress that you've made with ethics and philosophy and theology? Have you made anywhere near the advancement as human beings as you've had in technology? The answer is it's not even close. If anything, we might have even gone backwards in some regards. I want to show you augmented reality demonstration. I was amazed by this. I was watching this the other day. We were doing some stuff for the Dream Labs, and I'm reviewing a bunch of stuff, and we're looking at this augmented technology. This is being pioneered, I think it's by Nintendo. That car, by the way, that Humvee, doesn't really exist. And in fact, neither do anything on the table. All this stuff on the table doesn't exist. And he's about to drop this down on the table now, and everybody in the room can see it. You don't need glasses or anything else, and it drives around. Pretty amazing. But then I'm watching this, and then my eyes kind of drift down, and I see demo 2004. This technology is almost 10 years old. Today, we have access to endless amounts of information through our smartphone. Our smartphone is an amazing piece of technology. Do you remember just a few years ago when you were like, and you touched the screen? Now, nobody thinks that's a big deal. But what if your smartphone wasn't a bunch of wires and stuff that you would drop and, open up or whatever? What if your smartphone was only a piece of glass? In the not-so-distant future, we will see this technology from Corning. That's not a smartphone. That's just a Corning piece of glass. Watch this. It's not all this does, this piece of glass. You can set it down on any glass countertop or any glass table, and Corning glass will now make that into your television, and so much more. It's just a piece of glass. Very soon, you'll also be able to upload information into your brain. You'll be able to download an app and upload that information into yourself. This isn't me saying it. It's not some crazy guy that you've never heard of. This is Ray Kurzweil. This is the guy mapping the brain for Google. They're not an internet search engine. They're creating human intelligence. He is the head of their artificial intelligence division. We've had him on the program just a few weeks ago. He believes that in the next 15 years, you'll be able to upload things into you. And if that sounds crazy to you, then you must have forgotten where we've come from. Remember, he's talking about doing this in just a few years. Do you remember this? The Apple? The Macintosh? This is an Apple IIe. I think I had one of these in the 1980s. The floppy disk that went with it. This was outdated, and they stopped production in 1994. 1994, Bill Clinton was in office. But all of this technology, the way to listen to your music, the floppy disk, the movie camera, remember the big cell phone they used to have? the rotary phone, the IBM Selectric, all of this is just the beginning of what's in this. If I would have told you 20 years ago that just in a few years, all of this will be in the palm of your hand. And not only that, we don't even have a television on here. And in fact, it's not going to be the television set as you know it. It's going to be high definition, where you'll be able to see every, and believe me, I know this, every imperfection in somebody's face. And you'll be able to not only do that, you'll be able to talk to people face to face in real time, anywhere on the planet. That's what it's going to be like. Do you remember standing around the computer like this and waiting for it to print a picture like this? Dot matrix. Oh, and by the way, that's not all. You'll also be spending hours and hours and hours a day on this. And it'll wake you up, and you'll do all your banking on it, and all of your books will be on it, and your CDs and your movies and your games. You'd be laughed out of the room if I would have told you when this was in fashion. You have to ask why. Because the people who would have laughed you out of the room had already witnessed things in their lifetime that they never thought they would ever see. Now it's no big deal to go to the moon. But the people who were using this and were laughing generally grew up thinking you'd never be able to go to the moon. People can understand that technology is changing, but what they can't generally internalize is how fast and how rapid and how amazing that change will be. Remember, we went from fire to an Edison light bulb in about 5,000 years. We went from the light bulb to the moonshot in less than 100. We went from this to this in what, 10 years? The computer that NASA used for that moonshot was the size of this studio. We went from that to this in 30 years. The point here is technology is not linear, and this is really important for you to understand. That's to say that the last 100 years you can't look at and say, boy, if we have another 100 years of progress like that, you won't. Technology grows exponentially. So during the next 100 years, we actually will see thousands of years worth of advancements. It's called the law of accelerating returns. And let me explain it this way. There's a legend about the Chinese emperor. And he met with the guy who invented chess. And he said, I got to thank you for this. This is amazing. And he said, not a problem. He said, name the gift, any gift you want. Any reward for bringing me this. And he said, oh, okay. Well, it's really easy. Just give me 1 grain of rice to be doubled in each square of the chessboard. That's it. That's only 63 doublings, right? Well, I don't have any rice, but I do have vats of M&Ms here. As you can probably tell, and I'm a little rumbly in my tumbly. So, what it means, the emperor had to put 1 grain of rice there. The next square is 2. But the next square is 4. The next one is 8. Then after that, you go to 16. Then you go to 32. You see how this is ending? Then 64. It still seems like a pretty good deal until you start to get up to 128. Then 256, then 512, then 1024, then 2048, then 4096. By the time it reaches the halfway point, you are now into the billions. The halfway point is exactly when the emperor said, I'm out. 2.1 billion when you reach the middle. When you reach the last square, you have a whopping 18 million trillion M&Ms, or, as I like to call it, heaven. When it comes to computer technology, experts now estimate that we are now standing in the middle. This is about where the emperor said, too much, can't do it. We've had 32 doublings of performance since the first computers were made back in 1940. And we've only completed half of the board. Remember, the very next square, the very next step on the board, is the doubling of technology from where we are now, and the time between the squares is exactly the same. It's doubling each time. Soon, we will hit the point where computers design themselves. We haven't hit that yet, but we're close. But right now, what we've hit, and this is nothing, they just do exactly what we say. Siri, find a Domino's pizza, please.
I found 5 restaurants matching Domino's fairly close to you. I've sorted them by distance.
Thank you. Spooky. Convenient, though, right? When I was talking to Ray Kurzweil while we were up in New York, Ray Kurzweil said, Siri is nothing. He said, very soon, Glenn, maybe in the next 5 years, he thought it could be even sooner, computers will read your thoughts. I said, how is a computer going to read your thoughts? He said, it will read everything that you read. It will see every website. It will see every picture. It will read every letter that you write, every outgoing and ingoing email, every text message. It will learn from you and learn who you are. And someday you'll get up in the morning and you'll be thinking about something and it will say, I've been thinking about something. Have you thought about this? I've booked a couple of trips for you because I think you should go here and see this. It'll be your pal. Soon after that, computers surpass us in intelligence. And that is the point of singularity. And that is what we will focus on tonight. I want you to understand, it's nothing to fear as long as we are in control. There is nothing stopping it. Government would have to take away all of the technology for this trend to reverse or stop. And you cannot do that, as we will demonstrate tonight. Besides, I mean, the president would, if he decides, I'm going to run for a third and fourth and maybe fifth term, then maybe he could take out the technology in the United States, but you will never, ever, ever stop it. The world is on a path that even dictators won't be able to understand, and you will see why in a few minutes. The answer is not, should not, and cannot be regulation. The answer is not anti-technology. The answer is to be strong in ethics and community and decency, to control it, and to know that you're about to be overwhelmed by what you're going to see in just the next few years. The answer is to know your why, and it better be a lot stronger than the why we have today. This technology advancement is going to go so fast that the government will not be able to keep up with it. If they're worried about high-capacity magazines, which we are today, high-capacity magazines, geez, these have to be banned. Then you actually have to worry about a 3D printer, because this is a high-capacity magazine that was printed on a 3D printer. This machine will make them. You can own this machine in your home. Now, by the time Congress would get legislation through to ban this technology, doing it already, will be outdated. The only safeguard you have is divine providence, the Tower of Babel, our Constitution, and our principles and our values. John Adams said our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people, because he knew that a free society would melt down in your pocket and in your hand if we were not moral and religious. And for once, progressives are right. The founders could not have seen the future, because most of us cannot even envision the future. Some of our greatest scientists cannot envision the future. But I contend, worse than the founders, the lawmakers of today and 99% of the rest of the people on planet Earth cannot envision it, because what is coming has never been seen before in the history of all mankind. Many of our founders were inventors, profound inventors themselves. They knew there would be great technological advancements. They weren't stuck in 1791. They knew we'd see improved weapons because they saw improved weapons in their lifetimes. Progressives aren't arguing against the Constitution because it's outdated. It's because it is successfully standing in the way of their agenda. They want to ban guns like they do in England, and our Constitution makes that impossible. So they have to discredit the Constitution and the founding. I don't mind powerful tools that come out of the technology boom being in the hands of you, the people. It's big government that worries me. We are going to have to deal with health, social, spiritual, society questions that we have not even ever considered. No man ever has. Once Siri becomes smarter than you, the argument will be made that she is alive. You will not be able to tell the difference between her and someone else who is alive and has a soul. What happens? I told you about this printing machine last week. We printed a few things on the air. And I pondered to myself on the air, you know what, if we can do this, why can't we just take and have a couple of lines here of chemicals run in? Why can't I make my own drugs? Why can't I make my own Claritin right at home? I should be able to print that. And if you can do that, why can't you just make crack on a digital printer? I mean, it's really only a chemical formula. Why can't it just put the chemicals together and make it? Well, what I didn't think of, and why I have surrounded myself with really good tech advisors as of late, in the American Dream Labs, I got a note from one of our advisors in the Dream Labs, and he said, drugs? No big deal. Forget about that. In fact, Glenn, forget about genetically modified food. Soon, this will print meat. Print meat? Technological advancements, the Singularity. Do you remember the awful pink slime? That's meat. That's meat. And we were all like, that's not meat. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, yes, it is. We're not far away. Double the technology, and we're at stake. That's not science fiction, it's science fact. According to our DreamLab tech advisors, within 5 years, a new digital frontier is coming. And we have to be aware of it. And the only way to survive is to tame ourselves first. Self-governance. Tonight, the Singularity.